I went from like full-time rider to, you're not doing this to us. This sport's too good. Just something clicked in me. I'm like, not on my watch. You're not stopping us doing this. Not now. It's just getting good.
We are on, dude.
We are
on. Right, our guest today can outgate 100% of our listenership. He's the godfather of four-cross. MTB legend. That's right. It's Scott Boom Boom Beaumont. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, mate.
Hyped to have you.
I'm excited. It's good.
Yeah, dude. You're also a podcaster. I didn't even mention that. You're also a podcaster.
Well, we try. It's not like this setup. We talk to a few people, but that's it. So, yeah.
How many episodes in are you?
45.
Wow, you stuck with it.
Nice.
Yeah, so
it's good, man.
Hold on. Okay,
I always feel a bit more relaxed though if someone's like got a podcast.
Yeah.
Chill a little bit.
Yeah, kind of know what it is.
Yeah,
we'll give it a go.
Yeah. I feel like back in the day, I won't say paved the way, but did a lot of the awkward ones first before other people could start podcasts where people didn't know what it was or how it worked, or you know what I mean. Now people know.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was just more a case of, my dad raced motorcycles. I've done BMX. I do mountain biking. My black book of people contacts is pretty decent. So just wanted to try and ask questions that no one normally asks. So try and dig a bit deeper into some of the subjects and whatever. So yeah, that was the goal of my podcast. Yeah. And just enjoy talking. So
you've already done the best segue. You literally, it was the segue I was going to try and make was about your dad. Your dad's a legend, right? What did your dad race?
I think
growing
so.
Up?
So this story's been told. I've been around a long time. So this story's pretty out there. I've said about it a load of times. But he was a professional speedway guy, grass track guy, and long track. He wasn't there when I was born. He was in Germany racing. So that kind of really sets the tone of where my life was going to go. He rode for like Bellevue, Scunthorpe, Middlesbrough, loads of different like speedway teams.
So is that like he was a professional racer? He was. Wow. Yeah. What on earth did it look like back then? So you named some categories I'm actually not familiar with. Speedway, I'm very familiar with, as is obviously Davi's from Speedway family.
Yep.
Those other ones, do you know about those other ones?
Grass track a little bit.
Yeah, so grass track, it's all the same stuff. So grass track is just bigger than a speedway. Okay. So the biggest speedway track would be, I don't know, 400 metres, give or take.
Can't do length.
A grass track would be more like 600-800 metres, and a long track would be a kilometre long track.
Right.
So the kilometre long tracks, the long tracks in Europe, they would be, 100 mile an hour plus, no brakes.
And they still just turn left?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really have it here, do we, long track?
No, it's more like Germany, more like France.
Yeah.
Still happening, but, it's suffered over the years. It's not as big as it used to be, but back in that 70s, 80s when my dad was doing it, it was a big old sport, and
especially in Europe.
He's always about, Friday, jump in the car, midnight ferry, get there Saturday morning, race, back home Sunday. Like he was just there and back, doing that every single week to the continent. But yeah, it's always, he was sliding left his whole life, doing 60, 80, 100 miles an hour, depending on which discipline it was. And no brakes, which I just find insane. Like it's still to this day. I watch Speedo Grand Prix and they make it look so easy.
Yeah.
But they haven't got brakes. You know what I mean? It's wild.
It is mad.
What I always think about, because I did a lot of that traveling around Europe. Yeah. But at a time when it was relatively easy, you had Google Maps or a TomTom even.
Sure.
And then I love the idea of in the, what would it be, 50s, 60s, 70s?
Easy, bro, easy.
I don't know.
70s, 80s.
70s, 80s. Sorry, I don't know. I'm not good with time and lengths. It's whatever. But they just go and try and find a track in Germany.
He's told me
and
loads
you just
of stories.
set off.
A couple kind of
so cool.
A couple stand out. I remember once he said he got into the middle of Paris, and the only way he could get out was with he had a compass in his car. Like the old cars are like compasses and stuff and whatever. He just found his way out of Paris by going north. That was the only way he got out of Paris. It was just insane roads around there. And then the other one, he was in.
Turn right.
Well, he's got. You should have him on the podcast. Right? He's got so many stories. But there was this one time he went to through Berlin, so when it was east and west, and drove through like no man's land in between the east and west checkpoints, and like having your papers and that kind of stuff in those days was just like a really serious big deal, And like a couple of his friends, they got pulled up at the border, wrong carnets and all that kind of stuff, straight into jail and the whole sort of thing. Yeah, so he was in that era. You know, just a map, just trying to get through Berlin, and it's just like army guys, guns and whatever, and he's got like 500cc Jawas in the back of his car, and you remember those old Citroen cars?
Yeah, so he'd have been in a car as well.
Exactly.
With a bike on the back.
Yeah, those old Citroens, like, suspension.
Yeah.
So he dropped the back seats out. It became like a minivan almost. So he just lined up like 3 bikes in the back of there and off he went, you know. So he's going through like a checkpoint in Berlin, you know, like 3, you know, grass trap bikes in the back. And it's mad times. And there's just guns pointing at you going, what the hell are you doing? You know what I mean? You shouldn't be here.
I remember my first time driving around Europe, and it was a long time ago, but it was still, I could print off the A4 pages with the directions, turn left on the E17 or whatever. But I felt like, honestly, like Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I was out there, let alone a compass. I was out there just because you're driving and trying to like read all of the numbers and stuff and like the exits, and when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong. When it goes wrong, you're like actually quite nailed.
If you don't speak the language and stuff, I think that's. Again, and my family's got all these sort of similar sort of stories about
you
trying to get around Europe. I spent a lot of time with Andy Smith.
Yes.
And just
he actually messaged me a couple of weeks ago because my dad just had a new knee.
Oh, wow.
Coincidentally. So when you break...
Left knee.
You know, of course. So I'll show you a photo in a minute, but he's broken his femur like 4 or 5 times. He's broken his tib fib like 6 or 7. And he's had to have his knee because his leg was actually bowing at the bottom so bad. Like he couldn't walk, you know, a few weeks ago. It got so bad. And it's the first knee that's been fitted like this in this country. So it's like an offset knee. So it's like 6 mil offset to bring his leg straight again. And you want to see the size of his leg. It's insane. But they've had to put like a pin down both his tib and his femur. So a normal knee would just be like the caps on the end and like it's pressed in sort of thing. This has got massive pins all the way up and down. His leg's like out here. It's massive.
Wow.
But yeah, speedway man.
Gnarly
left
sport,
leg,
dude,
you know, destroyed and a load of stories to tell.
Yeah, no doubt. But being around with Smudge and just travelling around, and it's so cool when you can gather that. It's a different type of knowledge, I feel like, of Europe. Like you knew individual little bars and this place, that place. Whereas now I don't think you'd get that connection with it because you're just looking at it on a phone. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You'd meet certain people. Oh, this person in here helped us get to this stadium once. And it was
back in those days, you just need to get A to B. Yeah. And you just figured it out, you know, and maps and whatever. And you just find your little waypoints on the way, right? So, and you know, especially like in Poland and in East Germany, those kind of places, like back in the day, you know, you just find the bars, the hotels and whatever, and you know, there's no like internet to book a hotel. You just rock up on a Friday night and they've got a room for you, you know, and whatever. So
crazy.
Different times.
So what, so do you remember going out watching Dad?
Yes.
What was that like? That must be scary.
Well, like I said, he wasn't there when I was born, but 4 weeks later I was in the back of a transit van in the south of France. So at 4 weeks old, I'm at long track races, you know what I mean? So that burn there is from the exhaust on his bike. I just sort of touched the bike and it burnt me, you know, I was about 4 or 5 years old. So, but yeah, I remember like traveling, like, you know, through Europe with him. As I got a bit older, like pushing him out onto the track and like starting his bike and stuff. So not being a mechanic, but he was like, go on, push it, you know, whatever. So pushing him out and just feeling, you know, pretty special and whatever. So, but yeah, it's you know, it's a mad thing to see your dad sliding sideways, flat out racing. It's like, it's pretty high octane stuff. You know what I mean? So it's.
What did you think of it when you were that age? Do you have any memories of what you thought of it?
More so like his big injuries. So, you know, I remember some of my earliest memories. I remember, you know, Sunday, you know, getting a phone call and he's in Winchester Hospital and he's got a broken femur. You know, it's bad. Those kind of things I remember sort of pretty vividly, actually. Like your dad hurting yourself is always a bit of a strange moment, right? So remember some of those, but I mean, watching him race, just like, I guess, like, I don't know, you're a kid, right? So just like proud, but I didn't know I was proud at the time. It's just like, go dad, you know what I mean? So that emotion at the time is just cheering your dad on to win and whatever. But feeling like the sort of heartache of him injuring himself. There's some really big injuries. I mean, you know, talking about stories back in the day, you know, I remember one of his real sad stories. He crashed. It was a real dusty day, south of France. He's gone through the dust. He's not leading the race. He's behind, and then just bang, and it's end over end. You know, they're doing 80 miles an hour at this point. End over end. He's come round. The dust has settled. he's got a broken femur again. He's like a recurring theme here. But the guy next to him has died. Like in this crash, a guy died, and this guy's dead. And so he just drove home with a broken femur. Like he just came home. He just couldn't even process it. And so got in the car and just got himself home, you know what I mean? And some of those stories, you know, you sort of, that as an upbringing, like hearing these sort of stories and whatever, it definitely has played a part in shaping me into who I am today. Like it's definitely like I say, when I say we race, it absolutely is. We're a race family, you know what I mean? We're into it. I'm famous for using number 96, my podcast, 96 podcast. I ride number 96 on my back. That's my dad's number, you know. So it's just it's a number that carries on through the generations. So even like today, you know, we sort of tip the cap to his racing as well.
Wow.
Rad.
Did you ever dip your toe in?
Yes, but not properly. So right.
And is it probably because of those stories?
No, not so much. Just so there's a bit more to his story. So my uncle was a guy called Peter Hillaby, and he was clerk of the course at the Isle of Man TT races for like 20 odd years. And then he ran Oliver's Mount motorcycle road races, which is in Scarborough, England's only road race circuit.
You look like racing, don't you?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I'll take my mom in a minute. But yeah, so he got me like a PW50 at like 4 years old. So Christmas Day, I was 4 years old, brought it in, started up in a lounge, filled the lounge up with smoke. That was it. I mean, you just hooked, right? So, so rode motocross and motorbikes, you know, from when I was 4 years old. But I only had a few goes on the grass bike because my dad used to work on an industrial estate that had a big field. So he'd always test his bikes out midweek, making sure they're ready for the weekend. And I remember riding one of his 500 grass bikes in the field. And it was just the scariest thing. Those things, they're just, have you had to go on one?
Yeah.
Like
it's like you can't even explain it.
You can't. You've got to have a go. Like as soon as you just touch the throttle, it just pulls like you've no idea. It's really insane.
Yeah. I think
it's like,
hardest thing to get your head around is
it's like, oh my God.
If you let off, it grips harder,
Absolutely.
so it's going to go faster.
Yeah.
So I guess the key to being a good speedway rider is you keeping the back wheel spinning. So as soon as you let off, it grips and it'll just go straight.
And that's why you see
that's how
people like,
end up hitting the fence.
John
like
McGuinness, like TT's legend, you know, some of these like TT guys, they love a bit of speedway and they have a go and they're rubbish. Like, no offense to John McGuinness, but you know, the intrinsic thing, how you actually keep that wheel sliding is really hard. It's not a simple thing at all. You either get it or you don't, and it's quite hard to sort of teach.
It's funny because I watched my cousin became a professional speedway rider, and he kind of got into it through Ty Woofenden, who at the time was, I don't know if he was world champion. I don't think he was, but he was good. Yeah. And he was literally, I remember being there and him been like, literally, forget everything you know about riding a bike, motorbike.
Yes.
Because this is just opposite. It's everything that you don't think you should do is what you should be doing, sort of thing.
Small world. So my dad was on a speedway team with Ty Woofenden's dad.
Oh, with Rob?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So that's how we know Ty.
Yeah.
So through his dad, yeah.
There you go.
So
I mean, the speedway world's even smaller than mountain biking.
Absolutely.
World, I think. I've been out of it for a little bit now, but
you fit right back in.
It's still like, it's still, you know, all the same people and whatnot.
Yeah.
But crazy things to ride, man.
And I've gone over that, so I should just mention those. So I just touched on my mum. My mum used to race road racing motorcycles as well. So through my uncle. Way. So obviously he was like big into TT, and so she had motorcycles. She was just like club race stuff, but so she was doing that, and then she's done like rally co-driving and all sorts. So absolutely, we are, I won't say petrol heads, but we enjoy like adrenaline sports, like action sports. And
do you ever watch your mum race?
Our phrase is we race, you know.
Yeah,
it's it.
Did you ever watch your mum race?
No, I've got photos. I've seen some photos.
That'd be so scary for me as a kid.
Imagine it.
I was like attached to my parents as a kid. I would be so worried about my mum racing or my dad racing.
Yeah, I think it was pre me, so that's kind of
okay.
When she was young. But
out of interest, you're a dad now as well. Does it?
Say again.
Does it trickle down to your daughter now?
Sport does.
Okay,
but bikes. Yeah, she can ride a bike. She goes to the pump track and stuff, but I don't care. I don't really particularly want her to do BMX or mountain bike. I'm quite happy with her doing, like, she's super good at like dance, like tap and ballet. She does like cheerleading, swimming. She just started playing golf. She plays tennis.
Oh, wow.
Like, and always like clubs after school. It's like 6 days a week. Like we're just juggling clubs. So she's super sporty, super in stuff. But yeah, Astrid, she's she takes to things, but she's just, I'm not sure I could watch her racing a mountain bike. It's not for me.
So
it's
what
not
happened?
for me at all.
No. So the same happened with your parents, I guess. You didn't move straight into motorbike racing, right? You moved into BMX?
Yeah, so in the early 80s, so I started racing in 1982, which seems quite strange saying that out loud. It's a long time ago, 1982. But BMX back then was on cereal packets. So it was like the Weetabix series. It was on the back of like Schweppes drinks. So we had the Schweppes sponsor our national series. So when you were just like at home having breakfast or whatever, BMX was there. It was in newspapers. It was a real big deal. Andy Ruffle was on like Saturday morning TV. Yeah. So he had his own TV show just talking about BMX.
Wow.
So different times, you know, and so BMX was huge. And I took stabilised off a bike when I was like 2.5 years old, which would have become ultimately one of today's balance bikes. But you just whizzing around and you start pedaling, and saw an advert for a local race at Redditch, which is our local BMX track to this day, still exists. Went along, and again, I've told the story a bunch of times. I didn't win my first race, but I got second. But it was enough to get one of those like crappy gold trophies with a little BMX rider on top. And you take that to school on Monday morning and you're just like, I won this. Yeah. I got second. I got this. And that was it, hooked on BMX. I mean, going around in a circle one way wasn't my thing, what my dad did. That wasn't, I liked watching it, but I wasn't like going to do that. But going over jumps and riding a bicycle was it. So we started BMX. And then by 5 years old, I did really well pretty quickly. And I was on the Birmingham Wheels team, which was like an iconic BMX team in the 80s. And they signed me up at 5 years old, started on my first factory team, and here we are today.
Wow, factory at 5, that's what they call it.
Kind of crazy. 5, I can't think what I was doing at 5.
Yeah, I weren't riding bike. Well, maybe, I don't know. Not for a factory team.
Not around a BMX track. It
No.
makes you wonder what you would be doing if you had. Like it's really amazing.
Yeah.
That's a proper lifetime of it, huh?
Yeah, like literally, like I said, I was born into a family where my dad's not there because he's racing.
Yeah.
I started racing myself at 4 years old. I'm sponsored at 5. So people are, you know, I've answered the question for years, you know, when are you going to retire? How are you still doing it so long? How are you sponsored? How are you making this work? You know, and it's like, well, it really is a lifetime of work. This is what I do. This is what I'm good at. Not only am I still racing at the highest level, but you know, I do understand sponsorship. I do understand that side of things, because even when I was a kid, you know, my dad is designing his levers, you know, putting his logos on his levers and stuff. And I remember those sort of moments, and it all sinks in. It all factors through, you know. So a lot of experience, a lot of stories, a lot of stuff to tell. But it really is a lifetime of work. And there might be, you know, the end of the tunnel might be coming soon, but we shall see. We shall see.
I'm looking forward to digging into some of the stuff you've just talked about, but the backstory is really, really, really interesting as well. So how long did you race BMX for?
Well, I still race BMX now. So I had a break.
All right.
So I'm national number 1 in BMX now. I won the national series last year, which I'm super proud of. I took a break. So in 96, I was world champion. I won the world championship in 95, 96. And in 96, it's when all the mountain bike companies were looking for BMX riders. So cross country was the World Cup, but then downhill was coming along, and subsequently the year afterwards, dual slalom would start as a demonstration sport.
Right.
And all the mountain bike companies were looking at Mike King, Dave Cullinan, Eric Carter, Brian Lopes. And everyone was scrambling for BMX riders. So I was 18 at the time, world champion, and won the world championships. I was racing elite at that age in the UK. So I was racing against like Dale Holmes, Jamie Staff, Dylan Clayton. And I did world championships, won that, and I had British championships a couple of weeks afterwards in elite, where I finished 4th behind Dale, Jamie and Dylan. I was 4th, so I was best of the rest almost, which in that era was crazy. Those guys were so fast anyway. And then KONA literally contacted me out of the blue and offered me a full salary, full expenses, travel the world, bonuses. I'm sure like 6-8 bikes per year, all this stuff. and BMX wasn't in the Olympics at that point.
Right.
So I felt like I'd reached the pinnacle of BMX. I was at the top.
Were you making a living out of it at that point?
No, I was getting paid, but not a living.
Yeah.
I was getting money because just because I was young. And BMX in the 90s had a bit of a lull, so there wasn't a lot of money floating around. But I was doing okay. I was making a few £1,000. A young kid, still living at home, making it work is fine. And then KONA came along, offered me, crazy money.
Go on.
I think it was like 25 grand.
Wow.
Mid-90s.
Yeah.
Which I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, going from sort of a few grand to 25, plus bonuses, plus you don't pay a penny. I was like, well, this will do. Let's go for it. And that was a real crossroads. Do I continue with BMX and try and win more world championships, or do I just try literally blank and go into a new sport?
What experience had you had of mountain bikes then?
Zero. I'd never sat
zero.
on one.
Someone's just offered you more money than you've ever earned to ride one.
Yeah. Never sat on a bike. No idea about gears. No, our toolbox,
suspension.
Our toolbox consisted of a 15mm spanner and a hammer. That was a BMX toolbox done. And so, at that point you're only looking like Judy DH sort of suspension and IRC sort of tires. It's all basic old school stuff.
Okay, so
but even at that point, that's like tech to us. Was like, oh my god.
What even is mountain biking then? What were they trying to employ you to do?
Downhill. They were
downhill. Wow. Okay.
So cool. 97 season started, full KONA strip, and we go to the first national, Margam Park, and I win it. Right, so you're like, oh, this is easy.
Bonus
straight away.
First bonus.
Straight away. I think 700 quid. 800 quid, bang. That's bonus, salary. I'm like,
how'd you send off for it? Pigeon.
Easy. Yeah, right.
Sorry, mate.
Sent them a fax, faxed it in. So, you're like, this is easy.
Yeah.
And that was at a place called Margam Park. So it's like a 1:20 long downhill track. Super short.
Yeah.
In a country park. So it suited me. Second round, went to Hopton.
Okay.
Yeah, Hopton in Ludlow.
Yeah.
More like a sort of 3.5 minute track, roots, rocks, proper downhill. All of a sudden I'm like 12th, 14th. And it's like, this isn't quite as... And literally that was my downhill experience. I've been riding in the woods round by me.
Yeah.
Went to national, won, easy. Went to second national. Oh no, this really isn't easy, So yeah, that was the start of my mountain bike career. That's how it all got going.
So you're training at that point, like, I guess through BMX you learn every skill you need and then you train. How many pedals are you really training for? Because I know you've got a good, what?
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
1, 2, is it 1, 2, 3? Is 1, 2, 3 what you obsess over? Or over the years?
Yeah. And even now, I'm still, like I say, racing BMX. I'm racing world championships this year. And so I go to the indoor at Manchester. And it's just that 1, 2, 3, 4, like those first pedals.
1, 2, 3, 4, is it? Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is through your mind. That's where you're putting down every bit of power.
Basically, yeah.
You can take down some fellas with some big old watts.
Yeah, probably. Well,
yeah. Like what's I'm interested because I love stuff like this.
You're a numbers guy.
Wow, dude, do you know what I love? I love if someone's spent their life obsessing over something so tiny, so refined. What you work on week to week, 4 pedal strokes. It's as simple as that.
I've got to say, there's more to what we do.
Absolutely.
However,
that's where the race is really...
You really want to be coming out of a gate leading because...
You're not practicing pumping, are you?
This is four-cross as well. Obviously, it's transfers to four-cross. We use the same start gate in four-cross as BMX, so it all transfers directly between the two.
Dude, you can tell I've been busting to ask you the question because I never got really a good gate. When I raced four-cross, I had a shit gate. I used to go to gate practice at a few BMX tracks around.
Yeah.
And I just, it wasn't, the internet wasn't there. I didn't know who to ask.
Yeah. You've either got it or you ain't.
I was watching around and then people I raced against or people I saw at the races like yourself, I'd watch what you were doing. I was just trying to work it out. But you have spent decades.
Well, the biggest thing with a start is you have to go when the gate's still there. You have to, and that doesn't work for many people. Like actually throwing your whole body at that and all the power you've got in your legs at that start gate when it's still literally there is a real problem. So obviously we do like a little slingshot. We come back to get even more speed and power at the gate. And that's what trips most people up. Most people don't do a start gate. Like, how'd you come out so fast? Like, because you wait for the gate to drop and then you pedal out the gate. Whereas we're trying to like punch the gate down. Ultimately, we're trying to actually hit the gate, brush the gate, but really force that thing down. So with everything you've got. So and that's just not intrinsic to most people to charge a gate like that. You know what I mean?
Oh man, I remember it in the pages of dirt. You see the lineup, you see the finals lineup. You're in there, you know, let's say Affy's in there, got Slavic in there, maybe Prokop.
Ooh.
The gate's still up, all of the wheels are in the air. Duncan Ferris actually, he used to have
Still
a
does.
bad gate.
Still does.
Front wheel would be over the other side by the time.
Yeah.
But I find it really interesting. Yeah.
It's go on.
So do you have a gate? You have always had a gate, I assume.
Yeah, I've got a start gate at home. I've got a Pro Start, a French company. So we practice our gates at home, but there's so many tracks now that have gate practice. So like I said, I drive to Manchester every week. But I'm coaching at Redditch as well now. So I'm Redditch's gate, Telford, loads of like tracks local to my house. We're there practicing. It's one of those things, it's a skill you'll never conquer. No one's ever mastered a perfect gate.
I think that's what I love about it, because it's like seeking perfection on something so kind of...
I'm over 40 years of doing a gate start and still not good enough. It's still not there.
Wow.
So you're chasing something that can never be conquered, and that's quite hard to stomach sometimes.
Who's got the best gate you've ever seen?
Eric Carter.
Yo, really?
Yeah, to this day. Because he wouldn't put all his effort into his first pedal, but it's the way the second came in. He worked on form on the first pedal, but then power from the second onwards, and sort of restrict yourself back just that 2% on the jump to then maximise the second, third, fourth. He would never come out the gate first, but at the bottom of the gate he's leading.
So then your butt's further back. You're not like dumping on your first...
No, he was quite upright. He would just like do the correct form, like just, okay, out we go, then go.
I can't even join in
to
this
sort of like
to
disconnect your mind, to like go easy, hard. It was really like something not many people can do.
Okay, I've got two questions. Has the gate changed over the years? The actual physical thing that you're working on? Because obviously now it's pneumatic. Has it always been pneumatic?
Yeah. So since the World Cup started, yes, it has.
Right.
It's always been an automatic gate. So it's an air ram, like you get on the back of tipper wagons and stuff like that. So it's a pneumatic ram, controlled by a brain box. It controls all the lights and the beeps. And that's been the same throughout. Now, what changed was it used to be a set call.
Yeah.
So Rosa, watch the gate, and it was always a set timing.
You're not going to do the accent.
It's become, no.
Okay, riders.
There you go. You know it.
Random start.
There you go. So then that's exactly it. It's become a random start now. So it's, okay, Rose, watch your gate. And then it could be anywhere from 0 to 4 seconds when the beeps go. Mm-hmm. So it takes away that slingshot, that sort of, before people were like rolling back so far because you knew exactly when it was going to drop. Whereas now that's changed. We've adapted over the years and we still get a small slingshot from the gate to maximize that speed out of the start. But yeah, that's what's changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second question. Describe it. You're in the gate, whatever, BMX, 4-cross, whatever. Let's go through every individual process to getting those 4 pedal strokes in.
Can we start with
Sub-question?
your regular?
I am.
Oh, because I'm interested in this as well.
So, you're behind the start and you're going to take your body from 0 to 100 in a millisecond here. So definitely doing some warm-ups, definitely doing some stretching in the pens behind the gate. You're just having a little move around, sort of run on the spot and whatever, up to the start. And you really are trying to clear your mind, because a lot can go wrong with a start as well as it can go right. So even though it looks relatively simple, you've said you've watched it before and you try and see what they're doing and stuff. You need to keep it simple. That's the key thing. So keep it simple. Remember your sort of points. So it's trying to drown out the crowd noise as well. There's always people shouting and music and stuff. So you try and just be zen almost, and I listen to the beeps. Some people watch the lights, so I listen to the beeps. And the reason for that is if the sun's behind you, then the lights don't shine quite as bright and there's factors there, whereas the beeps are always going to be solid. So I've got my head down, right foot forwards, and you sort of get up on your pedals, you
You're
relax.
right foot forwards.
Right foot forwards.
But you're normally left foot forwards.
No,
if
I'm
you
right
ride.
foot, so I'm right foot forwards when I ride as well. So I'm always right
Okay.
foot forward, sorry.
Interesting.
Yeah. So right-handed, one
Okay.
brake on a BMX, right brake. On a mountain bike, my back brake's on the right as well because I've had a whole lifetime of using a back brake on the
Right,
right-hand side.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
So right foot forwards.
Some people start opposite. I'm
Some-
really sorry. I've just interrupted.
Yeah, no, it's
It was
good.
one of the things I was thinking.
Yeah, some people have this mentality of if I put my weaker leg
Yeah.
forwards, which is the Eric Carter theory of come out steady but keep control and then drive on your better foot on the second pedal. I don't agree to that school of thought. I think it all goes in on the first pedal. And I think both legs should be really pretty similar, but there's a school of thought of a stronger and a weaker leg. So yeah, right foot forwards. And what you want to do is make sure your head goes over ahead of the handlebars. If it doesn't, when you come out, then you end up wheeling down the whole start straight. So you've got to focus on like drive with your head, lead with your head first.
Are you pushing into the gate?
No, relaxed on the gate. Like if you're pushing into it, then that means like when you throw your body forward, your head won't go forward to the bars because you've got too much. You're almost like pushing yourself back already. So you need to stay like pretty relaxed and actually throw it all forwards at the same time.
Right.
So yeah, and then all in. Just you and I go on the when the beeps go, there's 4 beeps. It's red, amber, green, and I go on the B, the first B of the first beep. Like as soon as you hear a flicker, we're going, and that's uncomfortable for some people. You know, when literally, that gate's going to drop on green, like 3 lights later, and I'm going on the first light. So that's just something to get in your head.
And you're going what? Back to go forward?
Yeah, so just a slight pull back
Pull
on the
in.
bars.
Do you overgrip?
No, just dead straight in line with a fork.
I used to watch you. I always thought that you did because
not
I always
too
watch
much.
people's hands and they always do.
Well, I'm terrible. I'm always like pushing my gloves on. That thing you do on the bars.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get the gloves.
You death grip?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
But when you need a break, your finger will be over the brake. You're ready to go. But yeah, on the gate, everyone's just death gripping and away you go. And that's really it. And there's probably more intricacies than that, but it is head over the bars, drive forwards, and just trying to make a circle with your feet. Obviously, everyone's clipped in BMX. There's no one on flats, no one who's winning on flats. I mean, no, a couple of flats in the older guys, but everyone's clipped in. So it's just trying to get that circle, trying to be smooth, trying not to put your hips too far into the bars. If you get locked up in the bars, you sort of can't get your second pedal round, So a few intricacies in it, but yeah, it's there's an art to it. It's definitely
I love it.
There's a way.
We're out the gate and into an ad break. All right, folks, let's be real for a second. If you're watching this podcast or listening, then chances are you've probably got a face. Right? Got a face? Yeah, everyone's got a face. We also all love mountain biking, getting outside and pushing our boundaries to the limit. But do you know what really takes a beating? Our skin. Sun, sweat, stress, and let's face it, just existing all add up over the years. One day you're looking fresh, feeling invincible. And the next you catch yourself in the mirror and you're thinking, when did I start looking like I've been riding against a headwind for a decade? Or maybe you see a vision of Olly and you think, holy, I need to sort this out. Anyway, that's where OneSkin comes in. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company tackling aging at the molecular level because moisturizer, it ain't cutting it anymore. The OS01 peptide is scientifically proven to reverse the skin's biological age by targeting those worn out, troublemaking cells that make us look older than we feel. Think of it like bike maintenance for your face, except instead of lubing your chain, you're restoring your skin to peak performance. Smoother, firmer, younger looking skin. No weird gimmicks, just straight up science. So, if you want your face to match the youthful energy you feel when you drop into a new trail, or at least make it look like you get more sleep than you actually do, that's quite important. It's time to start your new face, eye, and body routine today. Get 15% off with the code RIDECOMPANION at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code RIDECOMPANION. Remember, we only get one body, one skin, and only you can choose to make it better. Age healthy with OneSkin. Cheers, OneSkin.
We're back from the ad break. Now we're hitting the first straight. Was that good? That wasn't as good as your segue.
You've tried.
Out. I was trying.
You gave it a go.
Okay, so we've talked about gates now. We've talked about you moving into mountain biking, which was then downhill.
Yeah.
At what point did that change to what was next, which kind of went more towards your roots in gate starts?
Well, I was in Downhill World Cup. I did Downhill World Cup from 97 until 2011. 2011, yeah. So a decent 14-year stint doing World Cup downhill there, which was really cool. Absolutely loved it. Was living to sort of do downhill at that point, especially at the start. I'd really made that clear cut. Right, I'm going to go and do downhill. I remember my first World Cup downhill was at Nevergole, which probably isn't the best opening World Cup downhill race to go and do. Super rocky, 3-inch travel bike.
Yeah.
Chucked it down in rain, just like fish out of water. This was not what I signed up for because there wasn't the internet.
Yeah.
I bought a couple of magazines. Okay, this is downhill. Got it.
Done.
All right, cool. Got that. We'll give it a go. Won the first national. So easy.
Done.
You know what I mean?
Completed it,
And then
mate.
you go to,
World Cup's losers.
you go to Nevergole, and there's like Sun Chippy were there with like their 40-foot truck. I mean, nothing's changed. We had 40-foot trucks back then as well, you know. So everyone's got big rigs, and you're like just eyes wide open, like this wasn't in the magazine. I didn't see this. I mean, you couldn't get this information apart from being there. So you're like, okay, right, this is like really serious. We're serious racing now, and I'm not sure I'm ready for this. You know what I mean? And I remember doing the first run down Nevergole track and surviving. Like that was literally it. There were twice in my World Cup downhill career. I'll tell you a second in a minute, but where you just felt like you were literally surviving to get to a finish. And it rained on top of it, and I was just feet off. I might as well have been balance biking down the whole track. It was, it wasn't good.
Who were the guys then?
Nico.
Yeah.
Vuyo. But then there was hope. I had hope because like Baz de Beaver, who was a BMX guy, I knew him from BMX all years. Cedric Gracia. I'd raced Cedric Gracia in BMX. He was in my age group, so I'd raced him from 85 until like 96.
Right.
So I knew Cedric super well, and he was like top 10. So that is what gave me the hope. Like, I just need to get used to this and figure this out. But it was actually at the second World Cup. So we went from Nevergole and then drove from there straight to Sierra Nevada, south of Spain, for my second World Cup downhill. And they introduced a demonstration dual slalom race.
Nice.
So straight away, even at my second World Cup, I've just finished BMX, I'm here, and I put dual slalom on, and I finished second to Brian Lopes at that first race. I just remember being real foggy. I don't know much about track. It was just some gates, but it was a gate start. I think it was a motocross backward falling gate, but still it was like a 1, 2, 3, 4 out the gate. Just get going. Left, right, left, right, left, right. End up finishing second behind Lopes, who obviously I knew from BMX. So I was like, okay, so I just got like 90th in the downhill, but I got second here, and that carried photos in the magazines. So the magazines, use those images. I was on the podium second. I don't think anyone did that well that weekend in that downhill. So I became a bit of the story that weekend, even though it was just a demonstration thing and just trying to start something new at World Cup downhills. So from there, so gate started from there. So I was really starting to do those already. And it was the following year that dual became a World Cup discipline. So he took dual slalom out of the equation, put 2 rides on the same track. And so I continued to do downhill and dual for those next few years.
Because they're at the same
venue. Saturday dual,
Dream.
Sunday downhill.
Yeah.
First one, I travelled out there with Will Longdon. Me and Will used to travel, most of these races together. We travel buddies. And even in that second year, my sort of, still getting used to mountain biking. I remember in that second year, we went to the airport for Stellenbosch, which was the World Cup in South Africa, round 1. And I think our excess baggage bill was like $4,000, I'm going to say. So we stood at the check-in and he's calling MBUK, I'm calling KONA and just saying, we need a couple of grand, you know, for bags here. Like, because we were obviously taking downhill and dual bikes at that time. And in the end, ultimately 20 minutes ago before the flight they paid the money. So off we went. So, but again, different times, you just phone up and people just give me credit cards to just pay $2,000 for excess, no problem, you know. So that was cool. Went to that first ever dual World Cup, and it was a 14-second track, which is 14 seconds, right? So it was just bodged into the last finish straight of the downhill. And you went out to start, it had a 90-degree left, along a little bit, a right, and then down to the finish, and that was it. So 2 corners, right? And it ultimately...
Tight times there.
And because you're on the same track, if you're on the outside gate, you had no chance, because the inside gate took the lead, ran you wide, they won the race. So, but I think I did okay. I got like to quarterfinals. Obviously, you've got like Sean Palmer and those kind of guys starting to come in now as well. And so you've got Lopes and Cully and Carter and Palmer. These guys all being dual sort of specialists. And I'm still like super young. I'm like 18 at this point, like just wide-eyed and, you know, pretty cool.
Dual is quite in terms of dual is quite an MTB discipline. You're flat cornering, right?
Well, this was dual. This was both riders on the same track.
Yeah.
This was the carnage sort of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this is not dual slalom.
So dual slalom was the first year I did it in Sierra Nevada. They had dual slalom gates.
Okay, so
and
this is dual eliminator.
But this is like dual eliminator, yeah. But it was called dual, D-U-A-L. Oh, no, D-U-E-L.
E-L,
and dual slalom, D-U-A-L slalom, yeah. So D-U-E-L, dual.
Okay, sorry.
So, yes, and then, like, everything I'd ever learned, so, I mean, you won BMX races by getting out of the gate, winning, or passing someone, and that was it. Whereas dual became this, like, survival of the fittest. Like, you were just hitting people, getting hit. And somehow, I was, you know, definitely wasn't one of the biggest guys at that point. You're up against these, like, you know, Wade Boots, you know, guy's an animal. He's a big dude, you know. And so I was good at outsmarting these guys. I had track craft and I was quite nimble because I was smaller than those guys. So I was ducking and diving better than they could. So they might have the power in the first straight, but I was ducking and diving and avoiding some of the carnage. So ended up finishing, I think the first year I got like 5th overall in the World Cup. So that was cool. And next few years, you know, I was really hovering around that 4th, 5th, 6th position all the time. Few second positions and, you know, on podiums with Lopes and with Cully. Amazing memories, you know what I mean? That's pretty cool. John Tomac.
Wow.
You know, so I'm racing John Tomac in dual races. So that's kind of cool.
That's sick. And were they at every World Cup downhill then? They'd just be a dual?
Yeah.
Okay. And how was your mentality there? What were you just getting through the downhill so you could focus on the dual? Or was
the mentality was I was there for downhill still, but I was really good at the dual.
Right.
So I'd practice loads on the Friday, like really put a shift in, like try and get loads of downhill time in. And then do a couple of runs Saturday morning and really switch to dual mode. Right. And then as soon as dual's finished, get right back into downhill for a Sunday.
Yeah.
So yes, I was trying to split my time wisely as it would be. But yeah, those days, you know, having that on a Saturday, having that head-to-head stuff on a Saturday and a downhill Sunday, I still think to this day is what the World Cup is missing. I think it adds something for the spectators. It brings a different athlete into the races. I think it was super cool. But obviously then going into like early 2000s, dual, because Eurosport TV were filming all back then as well, you know, our World Cups. And I think Eurosport were getting frustrated that dual was becoming just who can knock each other off and the other guy wins. It wasn't as frequent as I think a lot of people regard that era as there were loads of crashes. It wasn't that bad. But there are some real famous ones still kicking around YouTube, you know what I mean? So it was sort of famous for it, but when you actually like real drill down on it, it wasn't as bad as it seems. But Eurosport did want to remove some of the crashing. Right. So it was Eurosport and UCI developed 4-cross. So you put 4 riders on a track, top 2 going through each time. To really take that emphasis of knocking people off, you had to try and smart your way into second place.
That was one of my questions to you, who actually invented 4-cross.
Yeah,
so it was the UCI and Eurosport putting together something.
There's a few people lay claim to it. There was some demonstration races before then. Some people had ideas and whatever, but It was those guys in the World Cup who just put it on the map and said, right, here you go. This is what we're going to do going forwards. And so that's when I started to change my focus from downhill, still doing it. And I was, at that point, I was getting anywhere in the top 50. So I was getting sort of 20s, 30s, 40s every weekend on downhill. So I was decent.
Yeah.
But I wasn't ever going to win. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't ever but four cross, we were at the sharp end from the word go. Like that was really, I guess I just found my calling. That was really the point. I was like, I like this. This is like BMX on steroids.
Al can race against 3 other dudes.
Yeah, and it also like BMX. When I left BMX in mid 90s, the tracks were good, they were fine, but they weren't like super big jumps or anything.
Not
Whereas
progressive.
four cross brought in some like booters, some serious jumps and some serious obstacles, and I was ready for it. It was the right time.
So to people that weren't kind of there, if the people that weren't there watching this stuff, I can't tell you how it's not like the start of four cross. These were massive events. The crowds were massive. Like, it's what I grew up watching. It was like unbelievable layers of people on the hill, and you get the biggest names racing. It's easy to, like, when you talk about the start of something, you make it sound like, oh, we were on our penny farthings and we were racing around a small car park. This was massive, right?
Yeah.
Big TVs, big sponsors.
Yeah.
And you were there right at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great time. We were sponsored by Ford at that point. I was being given cars. I remember picking up our first Ford car, and it's just different times. Right? But I remember the boss of Ford UK was there at this photo shoot at Cheddar Gorge. We used to have Cheddar Challenge. And he was like, we need a photo of you guys with the car. So we all stood next to it. It's like, no, it's not good. Get up on the roof. And so we all had SPDs on and just up on the roof, and his roof caved in. He's like, oh, don't worry about that. And just, it was just a different time. And I remember picking my car up on that day and driving out of Cheddar. And I said to the guy, right, so it's got 22 miles on the clock. Do I need to run this in, or how's this, do you go calm with this or whatever, 500 miles or whatever. He's like, no, I want to hear you hit the rev limiter all the way up until I can't hear you anymore, So it's like I'm 20 now, years old, being given a Ford car that had been prepped by M Sport, and just told to hit the rev limiter. So
life is good.
It was bonkers. So it was a different time, and it was absolutely like we were just young and had loads of money and been given cars, traveling the world, and doing a sport that had sort of evolved. Like, you were part of the evolution, and it reached this point of like, this is really cool. We've actually arrived in something that we all actually love here, and the crowds love it, and it just fit the bill perfectly for everyone, fans, sponsors, riders. Everyone was happy.
How much did you have a say in its progression?
A little bit. I was good friends with Glenn Jacobs. So Glenn Jacobs was building the courses at that point. So anyone listens to the motocross podcast, Gypsy Tales, that's his
uncle.
Yeah. So he used to be the course builder. That changed then to Phil Saxena, so from Velo Solutions. So those guys were like traveling the world, and they always were super good in rider feedback. So like Glenn used to love like the mogul sections and things like that. Like Lopes would hate those sort of things. I didn't mind it, whereas I loved the big jumps, whereas some didn't like it. But so they were, those guys, those course builders, they were always like super cool and listening to our opinions and listening to what we were thinking. So absolutely, we were developing the sport at that point. Yeah. We were involved in track design, and but the format didn't need any work. The format was perfect. It was a straight knockout, and that's what's always been the case about four cross as opposed to downhill, for example. And I'm not in any competition with that. I love four cross to this day. I still do it. But we can compare to downhill. And I think with anyone watching the sport outside of mountain biking, you watch downhill and the guy who sets off 12th from the end might win the race. And that's quite hard to keep up with if you're not a fan. Yeah. Whereas four cross, because it's a process of elimination to the final, the very last race you watch, the guy who wins the race. So for anyone outside of cycling, let's say, anyone who's just not a cyclist or doesn't understand whatever, just tune in to watch it, and they stop channel hopping and they stop on four cross. It's very easy to understand. The winner just keeps on going through. Yeah. And that was always the format. Never needed any change, but the tracks did evolve through our times. Predominantly we just wanted bigger jumps,
Really, yeah.
And that's obviously with our 4Cross Pro Tour now, that's where it's got to.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, I mean, slightly off topic, but when you think back to literally what you watched growing up, your dad, it's like a Speedway GP is literally the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
4 people, process of elimination, person who wins the race.
It takes all the understanding out of it.
Yeah.
Because if someone wins, they move forwards. It's
So
very easy to
spectator
understand.
friendly.
And that's where I really believe mountain biking sort of lost its way a bit. Certainly in that sort of 2012 when 4Cross changed from the World Cup and stuff, I think lost its way because 4Cross is the way you can take the sport to people and you don't need to explain it. It really is self-explanatory.
Yeah.
And there's no discipline now that is, well, it is cross country. You know, the guy who wins. But you got to wait for 2 hours for that to happen. And there's no way you're going to get anyone who's not into the sport to watch for 2 hours to see who wins. Whereas 4Cross is so action-packed, so quick, so understandable.
Easy to film.
It makes complete sense.
Yeah, 100%.
So the golden era of 4Cross, let's say the golden era of 4Cross when it was in its World Cup era, what was happening to riders? How were people specialising in this exact discipline?
I always remember a conversation with Brian Lopes, and it was when he set up his own team. He sort of went to Oakley, GT, Fox, I think, suspension. And he was the first guy who went, I'm just going to do 4Cross. And I remember vividly asking him, you know, why have you done this? Like, what, you know, tell me about, you know, what's happened? Why are you doing this? And he was like, well, I'm getting paid double the money to do half the work. And it just locked him. I was like, whoa, okay, cool. Good for you, man. That's me. And that was the first seed that started me thinking about specialising it anyway, as things started changing. But yeah, he was the first. And then came some others like Michael Prokop, Roger Rinderneck, who else? Like Michael Morosi. A bunch of these guys really started specialising just 4Cross. And at that point, I was still racing downhill, you know, again, still relatively at the sharp end of downhill. But my heart had really started drifting towards 4Cross. I was like, this is super. And we had like things like a Jeep series. Do you remember the Jeep series that used to run in America? So teams of 2 riders, and we were doing sort of those sort of things. And so there was some other like distractions starting to come along that really focused on like the 4Cross riders a bit more.
Right.
So that's at that time more and more I'm just like, okay, so that's when I started drifting away from downhill, maybe not riding as much downhill, and focusing a bit more on the 4Cross stuff, but still trying to mix the two. Yeah.
Did you see those guys that would started to specialise, like pull away a little bit or not? Or did you, because obviously it's a lot in it. You're doing downhill training, practice, blah, 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 and then you're doing that. Whereas they were just...
Not massively, because even then we'd have like Greg Minar, Sam Hill, who else? A bunch of people.
Affy G.
Yeah. You know, and these guys are still making the podium. So it's not making a big... On a few tracks maybe, depends on the track.
Right.
Would depend on exactly like how the track was. But in the whole, not massive, not like it should have made more of a difference, but it really didn't. And I think, you know, all these guys are athletes and they can go through a couple of days of training and a couple of days downhill before racing for.
Yeah.
I don't think it ever made masses of difference. The only thing would be the specifics. So the start gates, the sort of hardtails at that point, you know, the sort of sliding around corners, clipped in, that kind of stuff. Like just trying to like figure out this new wave of aggressive, high action, sort of high octane 4Cross around some downhill, really. Just a bit of bike handling skill just needs to be worked on. But there wasn't a big divide though between like Lopes all of a sudden wasn't just winning by massive margins over the downhill guys. It kind of did depend on the track a little bit.
Okay.
What era would you say became... So would you consider the golden era like that time where there were downhillers racing as well? Is that when it was the most fun for you, or where?
Honestly, it sounds like I'm being biased. The most fun time is now. Like actually the Pro Tour now has become everything that everyone dreamed of it being back then. No one's on a hardtail anymore. Everyone's on trail bikes. The speeds is really high. We're using wooded sections and rocks. The jumps are bigger. So it took some time, but we got it there in the end. And sort of from 15 onwards of 4Cross Pro Tour, like Thomas Slavik's race is... And we'll come on to current in a minute, I'm sure. But so my golden era is actually currently, I'm loving where it's at in a minute. In terms of riders and superstars and people who everyone watching this and listening to this, he's going to recognize, you know, if you want to watch Lopes, Cedric, Eric Carter, and Jared Graves in a final, that's the golden era. That was some incredible races, some incredible sort of sportsmanship. There wasn't much contact. The famous guy, Crimmer Moore, you know, was always a bit aggressive. But aside from him, you know, this was smart, calculated, clever racing.
Yeah.
And it was a pleasure to be a part of it. It was a pleasure to be winning some of his stuff. It was a good time to be in it. I don't think I ever finished outside of like 6th or 7th in the World Cup in the overall. So I was always at the sharp end, in with these guys, and to be in those finals with those sort of riders, yeah, absolutely, it was brilliant. These are iconic legends of mountain biking, not just four cross.
Yeah.
These are names that resonate from anyone in cross country or downhill. They know who Brian Lopes is. So to be on start gates on podiums with these guys is cool. Yes, golden era, yes for names. Golden era for the sport is actually current.
Yeah, I think I'm asking the question wrong because I'm asking it from my perspective. I guess I'm asking it from a fan perspective and how big it was back then. And like, I really love watching four cross. I love four cross, and I love watching all of it. I love watching. I love watching Dan Atherton do weird lines and come take someone out, and I love watching Slavic gate the shit out of people. And
But to answer that question directly, you know, at Val de Sol this year, we have a four cross pro tour. We've had four cross pro tour there every year for the last 20. The crowds we will have on Friday night at four cross pro tour this year at the World Cup will be bigger than you'll see on Saturday or Sunday. The crowds at the four cross, but you don't see it because Warner Bros won't show it. But the crowds Friday night for the four cross pro tour are insane. And the crowds like Thomas Slavic, I can give you numbers. Like Thomas Slavic has 16,000 people come to watch JBC four cross Revelations,
which we've got to talk.
And
about
they only come to watch four cross. They're not coming to watch anything else.
Yeah.
So the sport still absolutely resonates with people because it's exciting. You can't deny. You can see start to finish. You can see every passing move that's done. Everything about four cross works from a fan perspective. And now the tracks have become rougher, tougher and faster. It's now become this like dream sport.
So what happened in 2012?
I've got to be very careful what I talk about because when I finish my career, I will tell everyone who wants to listen about what happened in 2012. I'll come here and do it. It's not a problem. End of 26, I'll come and talk.
Okay. He's called it.
Look, it's so we're driving 2011. We're driving to our final European four cross event in Czech Republic, and we're driving there. And this is before like roaming tariffs on your phone. I remember my phone bill was like 400 quid because we got wind that we just had Champery four cross world championships. The famous one where Danny Hart wins the downhill, that event, Saturday night, four cross, incredible track in the woods.
I remember it.
Very mountain bikey, you know. So like, this is the
people on downhill bikes in the women's. Fionn was racing on a downhill bike.
Absolutely, got second. Yeah, she just flew. Wow. So the sport was sort of changing. It was all looking good. Because I was like the rider representative to UCI at this point, so I'd had meetings with UCI on the Thursday and Friday. Everything was looking good. VIPs were there. They were really happy with the track, like the direction of the sport. Everything's all good. A week later, I'm driving to Czech Republic, and we get wind that the four cross has been dropped from the World Cup. And we're like, what? What's going on? This can't be real. This isn't serious. And no, it turned out it was deadly serious. So straight away, and it was apparent, it was very definitive. There was no negotiation. It was out. Don't call us. Don't email us. We're not listening. It's out. Done.
So how many months? So what sort of like period of notice were you given then for it to be out? You were literally...
Well, it wasn't. We raced the World Championships the week before. Everything's all good. I'm on Wednesday driving to Czech Republic. Yeah. Get wind of this. And it was no consultation with riders, very, very, very little consultation with any of the organisers. So like your Rare Management who ran Fort William, for example, your Jestev who run Mont St. Anne, all these sort of organisers who run the events that maybe listeners don't know about, but each event has its local organising committee. No one particularly knew about it, but the reason given was the tracks are costing too much money and all the organisers are sort of rejecting Four-Cross. And you're like, okay, that's a lie, because we know they haven't been spoken to. That's not the case here. And besides which, there aren't any rules to what a Four-Cross track needs to be. If there's 4 riders from a start to a finish, it can be on grass, it can be on a track that we associate with jumps and stuff. It could be on snow.
Right.
It could be in a town centre on tarmac. There's no definition of what Four-Cross is. It's 4 riders and start and finish. That's a Four-Cross race as far as I'm concerned. So that was rubbish, because you could have a World Cup Four-Cross and have a flat track. It doesn't matter. It's fine.
So they just pulled the rug out.
So they pulled the rug
like
out.
Getting sacked. Everyone involved.
Everyone
sacked.
involved. So at that point, there's teams, there's riders, there's mechanics, there's managers, all this stuff. Everyone's just immediate effect sacked. Like there's no sport. By the time we got to Czech Republic, myself and Chris Roberts had formed the Four-Cross Pro Tour. So we were like, no. It was probably a defining moment in my career, because from then onwards my life's changed a little bit as well. But I went from like full-time rider to, you're not doing this to us, this sport's too good. Just something clicked in me. I'm like, not on my watch. You're not stopping us doing this, not now. It's just getting good. And so we created Four-Cross Pro Tour. We spoke to the organisers, including Val de Sol, including Fort William, so the iconic Four-Cross tracks that we knew were permanent. I mean, these places have permanent tracks. Val de Sol had floodlights. It was all in place.
Yeah.
So we knew they hadn't been consulted because they had a track they wanted to keep using, And all these organisers straight away were like, yeah, we're on board. Whatever you're going to do, we're on board. And Four-Cross Pro Tour was born. The reasons, well, it's in 2010, the Winter Olympics took place in Vancouver. We'll leave it there.
This episode is brought to you by Invisiframe. Now, I've just finished up building my new bike, and the very first thing I did was get my Invisiframe PPF ordered and fitted. In fact, I was terrified to even touch my jet ski custom Focus without it, I'll be honest. Now it's done, I'm happy hurtling down the rockiest of tracks without a care in the world, as I know my pride and joy is protected. The cool thing about Invisiframe is you can't tell. The kits are made to measure and you can't see it even has one on. In the meantime, it's protecting my two-wheeled investment, and I have the peace of mind that it will be worth more should I ever come to sell it. I mean, I don't think I will, but yeah. How do I get a kit, I hear you ask? Well, I simply visited invisiframe.co.uk and searched for my bike and model. I had a kit shipped to my door days later. Not only that, I have a secret code which gave me a 15% discount. And I'm willing to share it with companionship members because I'm a really, really nice guy. Enter The Ride Companion, all lowercase, at checkout and receive, that's right, 15% off your order. And that goes for more than just frame protection too. Invisiframe make PPF for forks, cranks and loads of other great products to keep your bike looking great. Head to invisiframe.co.uk and The Ride Companion for 15% off your order. Thanks, Invisiframe. Back to the show.
Great ad. Unbelievable. Once again. Great segue, great ad, and a great story coming up. Hold on to your hats and glasses.
Now I'm not choking. I can actually talk. So 2010, border cross is taken to Winter Olympics. It receives higher TV viewing figures than downhill.
Downhill skiing. Yeah.
IOC make some calls and ask if it's possible to have a summer version of this sport on 2 wheels. To which someone potentially might have said yes. With the Olympics, if you put a new sport in, you have to take a new sport out. There's a 15,000 athlete quota. Mm-hmm. So you can't just add four-cross in, for example, if it was going to be four-cross. So another sport would have to be taken out for four-cross to go in. So what would that be? This is all hypothetical.
Yeah.
This is not true.
Disc golf.
This is me having a little story. So would you take cross-country mountain bikes out and replace it with four-cross?
Probably not.
Probably not, because
Higher
higher
participation.
powers might think that cross country is the OG mountain bike sport. That's fine.
Feels like an Olympic sport, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it has national federation support. It has thousands of people employed as part of that sport. It has infrastructure and team person stuff, and it's a really established. And we're four cross as a community, as a sport, we're not here for this. We're just here to race our bikes down a hill. That's it. We don't want any of this politics, but it was thrust upon us. So we get wind of some of these conversations, and that people in IOC really want a summer version of border cross skiing on bicycles.
So this is positive right now.
This is great.
This is amazing.
We don't know this at the time.
Okay.
But we get wind this in future years. And so one way of changing that would be to use cross-country athletes racing 4 at a time together in a border cross format.
Okay. So that's XCE.
So that's using the same athletes without removing a sport. You're actually using the same athletes to do 2 Olympic disciplines. That would be XC and cross-country eliminator, which was
that
created.
makes sense. That's because they do 3-on-3 basketball. And
Doesn't
they
it
do,
just?
Yeah.
So a swimmer would do 100 metres, and the same swimmers might do 100 metres backstroke.
Yeah.
Same hotel room.
The same swimmers will do a relay race. So they create races around the athletes.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. So four cross never stood a chance, because, as you now know through history, four cross was then culled, bang, straight at the World Cup when it's doing its best. We have Jared Graves, Jus Vickman, Roger Rinderneck, some supreme athletes occasionally. The sport's in a really good place. The tracks are getting gnarlier, as we showed at Champery. It's all going exactly like perfect. The crowds are bigger than ever. Everything around four cross is like bouncing. And then with immediate effect, the sport is removed from the World Cup. So from the story I've just told, you link all those pieces together and you see why Cross Country Eliminator was shuttled into the 2012 World Cup Series straight away, trying to get these guys in their Lycra, trying to look like a four cross race. And as history tells us, it didn't go very well. And now Cross Country Eliminator is sort of done and dusted and sort of gone. And so four cross, we believe, hypothetically, again, I'm not going to hang myself out to dry here too much, but we believe four cross was actually this close to being an Olympic discipline. I think if IOC could have spoken to our sport directly rather than through any other governing bodies, then it would have been a different path. Four cross could have been the sport.
I'm struggling to see the link of Olympics and UCI. How does
IOC will work with UCI to determine which sports will be chosen for the Olympics.
Right. Okay. Understood.
So that's my theory.
Yeah.
In 26, I'll either confirm or deny it. I still race. I want to race. I'm not here for any trouble. No. I don't want any governing bodies to
Neither are we, but it is interesting.
But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like four cross was just cold with immediate effect, and XC Eliminator shuttled in with immediate effect to replace us. And it's like, well, why are you replacing us with something that's not as good? Using athletes that aren't prepared to race 1 minute, 2 minute tracks. So Brian Lopes goes to the first Eliminator and wins, for example.
Right, yeah.
He won that first World Cup in Houffalize. So he made a mockery of that sport straight away.
Was there a boycott? Because you could have done the same, right?
No, because we had a four cross Pro Tour at that first XC Eliminator race. So at Houffalize, they had the first XC Eliminator race. We had our first ever four cross Pro Tour, and all the crowds were on our Pro Tour track, and no one watched the Eliminator. Like, it was dead.
So did you? Is that like? Sorry.
It wasn't a boycott.
Would that be a sanctioned UCI event that you ended up creating?
Yeah. So we Four Cross Pro Tour is
just happens to be at the same
registered
weekend.
with UCI. So we have commissaires. We want the rules to be enforced. Like I say, we're not here to cause trouble. We're here to build the sport. We believe in the sport. We want it to be, the best it can be. So after several meetings with UCI, we agreed that we would sanction each race with UCI as Class 1 or Class 2 events. And we continued, to just, the journey of four cross went from World Cup to Pro Tour. And now we're live on TV in countries around the world. And so we've just come away from the mountain bike industry in some respects. but the sport is growing lovely at the moment. So yeah.
Sad times because it was really at its peak. But what you're saying is that you've actually got what you wanted now. Is JBC Revelations, is that like what you'd always imagined Fourcross to be?
Absolutely. And I don't think any of us knew what we were imagining. We just like to race. Look, when you're a kid, what do you want to do? Race your mates. You know, if I'm running down the street, I'll race you there. You know, racing head to head is fundamental in society. People love it. People love a good race. You know, who's going to win? Who's fastest? Whatever. And we're no different. You know, in Fourcross, we just want to race each other. I think to me, that's more appealing than downhill. Like, I love downhill. I think the experience on the bike is great. But I think the experience racing your mate and beating someone it's amazing. We love it, you know. And so, where is, you know, JBC Fourcross Revelations now, which is part of our Fourcross Pro Tour? That track, the bike's being used. The sort of opening ceremonies, which is all flames and fireworks. You have Red Bull Air Race planes opening the event. Like, the event is just such like high energy, everything you always want it to be. And no matter where you stand on that hillside, like I say, you see the start to the finish. You see the entire race, all the action. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, you know, you might have seen the Michael Morosi wall ride pass, which has 60 million odd views globally, you know, as we sit here and speak. One of the most iconic sort of mountain bike films ever. And that's that same track. It's that same track. Can
you talk us through that track top to bottom? Because it's arguably kind of like the hard line of Fourcross in some ways. Would you say it's like the biggest, maybe the most like the biggest features, the most varied as well?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you come out of a start gate, like I say, like BMX start gate, we use a pro gate start gate system, which is what we use in BMX World Championships. So same thing. Drop down over like a gap jump. So you're dropping down all the time. Normal kind of jumps on the first straight, hairpin back, so S-bend, first turn. And you drop into a straight with a couple of 50-foot double jumps.
Yeah.
And the second one, when you land off a second double jump, into a wood section that Thomas has now put a kicker at the start. So you have to actually jump into the woods and you land on routes which are not out of place on any World Cup track today. Like, it's insane. Like, you're landing on routes, like big routes, like just the route field.
And it's just
through
wide
like a hairpin, super wide tape.
Yeah.
Go where you want, because we want passing. So you are literally clattering through a World Cup route section. You come out of there into a rhythm section, so it's all like on-offs, like in motocross, supercross. So on-off tables all the way down the straight, a huge double jump around the corner, a couple of big triples, and there's a rock section which he's just literally placed boulders. You know, the minimum size, this sideboard would be like, you know, just massive boulder field. And through there again onto an on-off, and then so a huge wall ride, which is the Morosi wall ride. That thing hasn't ever changed. The rest of the track has all gone through incarnations, but that wall ride is the same as it always has been. Iconic imagery from there, iconic pass from Morosi. And then we come out of that into like this S-bend with like these rollers for it. So I think it's like 16 rollers, and you can double, triple, single, whatever, all over on his corner. It's pretty cool. And then down across the finish line. So it has rocks, roots,
everything,
technical on-off supercross kind of stuff. Big jumps, like hardline big jumps, and a good start gate. It's got it all. It's really cool.
What bike do you line up for that one?
So I'll be on a stump jumper, specialized stump jumper. So like I say, trail bikes, no one's on anything less than sort of a 5-inch travel bike for that track.
No hardtails anymore?
No. But
at that track?
There was one last year, actually. Okay. And fair play. We always used to do that track on hardtails ourselves, but as things evolve, most people on trail bikes now,
Okay.
Yeah. So that was one of the things, like, you know, about Fourcross. People were always like, it's too specific and the bikes aren't really worth much money. So to companies, they're not making much money from Fourcross. So what's the point? That's completely changed. Like, now it's just trail bikes. It's exactly the bikes you can buy in the shops.
Slam the seat and
that's what we're racing on. Yeah, just slammed 7-speed gears on them, you know, change the stem and all that stuff, get the dropper seats out, and all of a sudden you've got a pretty modern Fourcross bike good to go.
Sorry to be annoying. I want to go back to something that you kind of just went over. So end of 2012, you just said we set up the Fourcross the Pro Tour. Mm-hmm. You said it kind of like, we just set that up. And then we just have this thing. But like, how did you initially do that? Why you and Chris? How did you get brands involved?
Frankly, it had to be done. And it's as simple as that. And it's like, if we're not going to do this, who's going to do this?
Yeah.
I was a rider rep, like I said. Chris was organising the British Four-Cross Series at that point. Mm-hmm. So he'd been doing that since 2003, I think it was. Early 2000s. So he was super in on Four-Cross. His kids were racing Four-Cross, Dave and Scott. And so we lived quite close together. So we talk Four-Cross quite often. You can safely say, the sport grabbed us. Like we just loved it, and like so many did. And we found this out because, like I say, we were in talks with UCI over a number of issues, riders and stuff, and I was representing the interests of riders and telling UCI and all this sort of stuff. So it just felt right that, well, we've got to do this. Yeah, we've got to do this together, So Chris had some really good ideas of like how we involve the organisers, how we, make this work, how we make it pay, how we're going to increase like the prize money. So straight away we want to match World Cup downhill prize money, which we did. It's not that hard. It's a few grand. But we just we weren't in competition with downhill, but we at least wanted to like compete and be like, no, we still are a force to be reckoned. This is still a cool
situation because you're kind of given the keys to a sport that is already thriving, and then all of a sudden
but taking away that TV coverage, taking away at that point it was Freecaster, so this is in the infancy of like online streaming and stuff. So figuring out like how are we going to make stars of these riders, and that's what suffered in the first few years. We lost some key big name athletes. So your Affys, Jared Graves went to enduro, Casey Curd, world champion, but went to downhill and enduro and stuff. And some people like jump ship just because their sponsors were sort of dictating to them, no, you need to stay in World Cups or whatever. I was at a point even then, which seems a long time ago, but I was one of the older guys anyway. I was in my 30s at that point anyway. So, at that point I'm being asked, when are you going to retire? How long are you going to do this for? And that almost gave me the second wind of energy. It's like, we're not done with this yet. There's no way we're done with this yet. We need to, and I've always said, we need to leave a sport in a better position than when I started. That, we're not here just to rinse it and then leave. We're here to actually make a difference. And, all the experiences I've had in my life, we want to give to kids nowadays. We want to get, so there was never an option for it to stop in 2012. We had to do it. And so, using my energy and enthusiasm, using Chris's sort of expertise on computers and websites and stuff and things that he was super good at. And we both worked with like the organisers, like Fort William, Val de Sol. Obviously Thomas wanted to get involved straight away. He built his track. And so we just had like this awesome like series. 4 phone calls and we were there. Ultimately. Then we needed to get home and actually do some detail. But it was like, are you on board? It's a yes or no. And that was all it took because people were like, yes, because Four-Cross has that effect on people. It wasn't something they were going, no. If it's not World Cup winner, we're out. It was like, no, we want to be in all the way.
Yeah. So what's the current state of the sport? I'd be super interested to learn more about it. So you got the do you own the Four-Cross Pro Tour now?
Yes. So Chris, unfortunately had an illness a couple of years ago and he's absolutely fine now, but he had a bit of a scare. And so he stepped away from British Four-Cross Series as well. So I've now took on the organisation of British Four-Cross Series and I still organise a Pro Tour. So spin a few plates and still, actually race the Pro Tour and do pretty well. So there's a lot going on. But it's good. It's better to be busy and keep on it. The state of British Four-Cross at the moment couldn't be any better. Literally. We've just had a report from British Cycling last year. And again, I really have to emphasize, we are not in any competition with downhill, but we can only judge ourselves against what is regarded as our blue ribbon sport. So in Britain last year, we increased participation in Four-Cross by 105%. Downhill shrunk by 32%. Our rider numbers, like our rippers category, so we have riders starting at 7 years old. our 7 to 9 and our 10 to 12-year-old categories are the biggest categories in our racing. So our young riders are really engaging and getting involved, and they're super excited to race four cross. It's exactly what kids want to do. We are coining the phrase gateway to gravity. So we're going to use four cross as the gateway to gravity. You'll come from, this is all goes back in my history, and what we've talked about already is kind of works in this, because obviously I've come from BMX. I've gone back to racing some BMX now, so I'm still actively involved in BMX. And so we see four cross as the natural stepping stone for BMX riders to come into mountain biking via four cross.
Right.
Which is obvious.
Yeah.
But that stepping stone has never been placed. Sometimes people have to have their hands held on how to do this. Yeah. It's like, right, we're here to open up mountain biking to you guys. And sort of COVID brought that along a little bit as well, because the BMX tracks were all locked and shut, whereas they could go and ride mountain bikes. So we had this new interest from BMX riders, my history in BMX, and we welcomed BMXers with open arms last year, and we saw our numbers absolutely skyrocket. So this year we have 4 new venues being built, 4 new tracks being built. We're going to go to...
This is in the UK?
In the UK.
Wow.
Yep. So we've got Chicksands, we've got Afan, Shred Hill, Falmouth Bike Park, and also Twisted Oaks. That'll be our 5 venues for national rounds this year. 2 rounds per weekend, so 10-round national series. So more bang for the buck for anyone who comes. It's a full weekend of racing. So like I say, 10-round national series is something we're really proud of. But going in towards 2026, our biggest problem is like, which tracks are we going to go to? Because we have so many tracks to work from. Wow. So talking to like Leeds Urban Bike Park, turn to a couple of new venues in Wales. Fort William are desperate to get us back up to Fort William and using that four cross track again. So it's loads going on. Southampton Bike Park have got a new four cross track going in. So four cross has got the momentum again, and I'm just so excited. It's really cool. It's really healthy. And the numbers are stacking up. We are increasing, whereas other mountain bike disciplines in terms of racing are actually decreasing at the moment. So we're going in the right direction. I mentioned at the start of the pod, my uncle used to run, he's sadly passed away, but he used to run Oliver's Mount. So in that time, he had Parkinson's from 2012 to 17. So I was giving him some help with some marketing, sponsorship and stuff. And I made some really good connections with TV companies to put Oliver's Mount on TV, which we did. And the costings really weren't that crazy. And really, I still have those contacts. And we had Oliver's Mount on ITV4, Friday night, 8 p.m. So in the next 3 years, I want to put British Four Cross Series on mainstream TV. And that's where we're heading with it currently. Wow. And the British Series got some amazing sponsors, like Schwalbe have sponsored it for like 15 years plus. Like they've always been behind British Four Cross Series. But like Olly's friends over at DMR, Motul, we've got, we've got
Motul,
USE.
I might end up having to race one.
Bikestow, yeah, you got to come along.
Is that contracted? You've got to be careful what you say.
I'll give you some gate practice. So yeah,
I'll do one.
Yeah.
I'm keen for one this year. If you are, I'll go do one with you.
There you go.
I was actually, not being rude, looking on my phone. I was trying to find the website. How do people find out more about it? How do they get to the calendar?
Dead easy. British4cross.com. British4x, number 4x.com. And on socials, British4x on all socials.
Sounds like there's a race pretty much close to everyone. Give or take.
No, we need some more in the north.
And the north needs a lot of things, but yeah,
we need some in north
is just
Birmingham.
Another one of those things.
Our tracks this year are all south of Birmingham, so we need we need a couple of north, which is why we're talking to Leeds and we're talking to a few other
Farmer
places.
John's would be great.
Farmer John's.
Bill puts the average sort of up a bit.
Quite up there, isn't it?
Like John, Farmer John's, he's got a four cross race team. They've got like 4 riders come to all the races. He wants to put a track in there. Pimbo, we spoke about it as well. So there's options. We are by 26, we will be north of Birmingham, but at the minute it's kind of a self-dominated. In terms of four cross on a World Series level, this year there'll be 4 rounds of four cross Pro Tour, one at Val de Sol, JBC, another one at Dobrany, and the final one at Szawno. And Dobrany's in Czech Republic, Szawno's in Poland. The one in Szawno, for example, is in the centre of a city. They take their entire sports budget for that town and they place it into four cross every year. So the track is actually in the parklands. There's all benches and seating areas around the track. It's fully floodlit. It's the most insane facility. and the town literally invest in our sport as their main priority.
Wow.
JBC is built by Jablanesh, which is Thomas's hometown. And like I say, everyone in that town, Saturday afternoon, comes to the track and watches Thomas race. So we just have some venues that are just incredible. Like I say, Val di Sole will be a Friday night on Floodlit on World Cup weekend. And like I say, we're not in competition, but you want to come out there and see how many chainsaws, air horns, how many thousands crazy Italian fans you'll see lining up.
And is that televised?
No.
Okay.
Because of our Warner Brothers problems. So
okay.
We wouldn't want to put something exciting on TV, would we? We're just here to race our bikes.
Okay.
We're here to race our bikes. But politics does get in the way.
Yeah.
The World Cup weekend is owned by Warner Brothers. I've spoken to Chris Ball at length about Fort William last year, about making sure Pro Tour was there. And, and what I talked about Winter Olympics and governing bodies, and it's like they don't want to remind people that four-cross even, the Snow Bike World Championships just happened at the weekend. What would be the best format for that? That would be a four-cross race, like border cross. If we did border cross on bikes, it'd be insane. It'd be so cool. You will not hear four-cross uttered to be on snow ever. You won't hear four-cross uttered ever. So that's our problem at the minute is there's a lot of politics at play. They don't want to mention the sport. They are happy to just let it lie and pretend it doesn't exist. So
what's stopping you televising the ones that aren't at World Cup downhills?
Some of them will be. So
Okay.
like that's they're like streamed. Like streaming's no problem. Like JBC's always streamed. Red Bull, obviously Thomas is a Red Bull athlete and he's constantly talking to them. Crankworks also are talking to us about four cross because it would sit in Crankworks really perfect. So there's some really good conversations going on, and I'm really open with it. It's really obvious at Crankworks. It's really obvious Red Bull TV. It's really obvious Red Bull support generally, like fits in four cross really well. And with the current sort of undertone of sort of everyone's a bit frustrated, sponsorship struggling, everyone's frustrated with TV. I think it could. This isn't our year, but four cross is in a really good place, especially nationally. British Series is going super well, but on the Pro Tour, it's just sat there bubbling along.
What other countries are like? You're saying England's thriving. Yeah. What other countries would you say are
Germany, Switzerland, Czech Republic, like I say, Poland. But we have messages from like Mexico. We have messages from like USA. Like people want it. It's there. It's just, it might have taken a bit longer than we all wanted or hoped for it to get to this point. But I think the package of how it looks and feels now is exactly what it should have been back in the day.
Is 4 the magic number as far as athletes on course? Or could 6 cross be just added a dimension to it?
You've got BMX 8. I think 4 sits fine. In terms of brackets and how you work it all out, 4, it just sits, it's a nicely packed 1.5 hour TV show. It's good to go. So it works in that respect. So no, I think 4's the magic number. And some of the racing is just insane. It's the right amount of people on track. You can move around, make the passes. And like I say, the days of it being like this crash fest is so long gone. That isn't the case. It's calculated, really super cool, clever, intelligent riding now.
Yeah.
And to do that passing people while you're doing 40 miles an hour jumping 50-foot double jumps is quite a sight. And that's exactly what four cross should have always been on a tin,
100%.
Oh, I love your passion, dude. It's so good.
Yeah,
I do. It's good, and as a discipline, obviously you've seen it through. You've seen how
it's
great.
Hard not to love it, man. It's just like the most easy to watch, or easy to understand, easy to compete.
Now. I'm an older guy, and there's stuff going on in the world. Like Ukraine. Ukraine doesn't have a downhill series particularly. It's not got a bike. Aren't we lucky to even just be racing and to have bikes? And so I really take that on board. Some people have like pretty strong opinions on oh, they used to, you know, on four cross and oh yeah. It's like, chill out, man. You're on the bike. Like, it's not worth getting stressed about. Like, really keep it calm. We're just racing bikes.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to do it, cool, don't watch it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But, you know, some of these strong opinions that exist in mountain biking around opinions of four cross or opinions of disciplines, other things as well, whatever. Sometimes you just need to take a step back and be like, oh no, actually, why don't I just give that a go? Because no one ever tried a four cross race and went, that's rubbish.
Yeah.
They always come along and go, that's amazing. We love it. It's great.
Yeah. Speaking of opinions, in my opinion, this is one of the best ad reads we've ever done. Ollie, 2025 is here. Let's be honest, mate, most New Year's resolutions barely make it past January the 10th. But we have consistently found one that is easy to stick with, and that is AG1.
AG1. Exactly. AG1 has been a game changer for thousands of people. One scoop every morning and boom, you've kickstarted your health for the day. It's like the easiest win you'll have all year.
Easiest win, is it? Yeah, it probably is. I have personally been using AG1 for around 3 years, and it's become such a key part of my morning routine. Personally, I either take it on its own or sometimes I'll throw a scoop in with a protein shake and it's just boom, it's done. One scoop, mix it up, and it feels like I've done something great for my body for eternity.
Nice. It's said to improve energy and focus. AG1 fuels your mornings, whether you're hitting the trails, the gym, or heading to work. It's also said to support gut health and immune defense. It's a no-brainer.
It is this time of year, mate. You need that immune defense. Yeah. We all know life gets busy, but AG1 makes health simple. It's delivered straight to your door every month, so you won't run out or forget. No more juggling a shelf full of supplements.
Absolutely. And if you're thinking about what habits to start or keep in 2025, make AG1 the one. It's your daily dose of wellness in less time than it takes to make a coffee.
Exactly. Health is wealth, folks. So why not get optimized, cover your nutritional bases, and probably ride better?
Yeah, go with it.
Yeah,
go with it,
yeah. So with AG1, you can get a free 1 year supply of vitamin D plus 5 free travel packs.
How?
Well, I'm going to tell you. If you head to drinkag1.com/ride companion, that's drinkag1.com/ride companion. The links are in the show description. Simply click those and it'll take you straight to the page where you can take advantage of this offer and be a more optimized human.
But it seems too easy.
Yeah,
a whole year of vitamin D.
Yeah,
and 5 free travel packs.
The sun.
So when you're moving around in the world, you can still stay healthy.
5 times.
Thanks, AG1.
Thanks, AG1.
We're back.
Fantastic.
I wanted to ask you about, e-bikes. Could there be any version of four cross that involves a climb and an e-bike?
Yeah, 2 laps. Backwards.
Yeah, how insane would it be? I was thinking about it like a town centre race with an e-bike climb.
That's brilliant.
We've talked about it I'm talking with British cycling at the minute. Obviously now I'm an organiser. I'm an athlete, podcaster, organiser. I'm trying to cover all the bases nowadays. Influencer, yeah, all this stuff. We talked about e-bike. Like, how can we incorporate them into a British four cross race? So it would be 2 laps of a track, starting at the finish line. You race the track backwards, back down, and do 2 laps, something like that. Or do the track normal way, and 2 laps would work, whatever. So yeah, that's where an e-bike could maybe come in. The only thing would be on the start gate, the start would have to change, because obviously as soon as you put a bit of pressure on an e-bike, it starts engaging. You don't want that with a start gate that's up, and then people are going over the bars and whatever.
Yeah.
So
uphill start.
It would be flag drop. It would be something e-bike specific for their start. But aside from that, why not? Absolutely.
I've actually thought about it loads, because we build these like street races with Slavic.
Yeah, there you go.
For Slavic to race down. And I've thought about how cool it'd be to like you talk about, bring biking, just what I think of as just mountain biking, whatever it is, to like a town centre. How cool it'd be to have like a double lap so you can e-bike race. It sort of sounds ridiculous until it happens, and then you're like, oh, I didn't even know I was missing this.
But I'm on your level, because it sounds obvious to me. That's
right.
Like, that doesn't sound weird. It's like, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
If e-bike sales are the numbers that we always hear, it's like, well, yeah, I don't think there's, I think like EDR and stuff at the minute, like how they're embracing e-bikes into World Cup, I'm not sure is quite there. Again, I always look at it from outside of you've got to look at it from outside of mountain biking. You can't look at it from our little tunnel vision. You've got to look from outside. And there was something Simon Payton from Malvern's Classic posted at the end of last year. He went to an e-bike race. I think it was a World Cup or something. And there was Mick Hanna riding his e-bike up a grass field, like crazy special stage thing. I'm not sure. I don't follow e-bike World Cup, but... and I commented on that post and said, this isn't what I want to see Mick Hanna doing. And Mick Hanna, one of the sickest, absolute, craziest downhills I've ever witnessed. Saw him at his absolute prime in downhill. Still see him now. You know, he's like that iconic look of loose and fast and out of control, but totally in control. That's how you appeal to sport outside of our little world. But seeing him ride an e-bike up a bit of a grass bank that's not how we're going to push things forward. That's not the answer. And I think e-bikes have still yet to find the place. It's so intrinsic. The eyes on our sport, e-bikes in particular, are so intrinsic. We're looking at it from inside, and we need to take e-bikes in a format somehow outside of our little bubble.
Yeah.
Nice.
Something like four-cross, not four-cross, but how four-cross came along at downhill World Cups and became like this, like, oh yeah, that's how you take a sport to people. That's what e-bike needs to find at the minute. I haven't got the answer of what that is.
No.
But it is not Mick Hanna riding up a grass field because it's so steep you can't walk up it. Oh, what would he do? That's really cool. And Mick Hanna might love it. But what I'm saying is Mick Hanna looks at his best doing 70 miles an hour loose on a downhill. That's when it looks crazy.
Yeah.
And him chugging away is not the one.
I always think about when you're out on an e-bike ride and people see you just going up any climb, and just there's that relatability where I always think like, oh, that guy or girl has gone, oh, I could do that. And that's the connection you need to make.
Sure.
So that people, they watch it and they're impressed, but they also watch it and go, oh, I could ride up that climb like X rider has. I think there's got to be that, hasn't there, as well?
And that absolutely has its place. You know, you have to look at grassroots and development.
That's real
of sport.
Mass adoption.
Absolutely. And there is a place for that.
Yeah.
But at the sharpest level of you know, the craziest levels of World Cup, I think e-bikes need to be exploited way better than they're currently being. I don't have the answer for what that is, but it needs to be more exciting because those bikes are capable of so much. And at the minute, just showing that they go up a steep hill isn't quite what I see it being.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, you know, if you look at Warner Brothers and they're now phasing out some enduro and stuff, you know, they know the figures. People aren't watching it. It's not exciting. It's fantastic doing the events. It's really cool. But this is what four-cross always brought to the table. It is exciting for a viewer. Whereas e-bike and enduro in its current states, it's not getting people on the edge of their seats.
No.
But it is for the rider. But you can't get that across. So it all needs a bit of an evolution here. It's still got to find its way.
You have always been super dialed, pro looking, always, you know, I remember going to four-cross races and you were there, nice camper, 2 bikes, everything's perfect.
Factory, dude.
Factory, yeah. The factory 5-year-old carried through to whatever age you are right now.
32.
32. Yeah. Where has that come from and why is it so important? And is it must be a conscious thing to represent yourself in this way?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So again, starts with my dad. You know, I witnessed him handling sponsorship and getting money, and they put a logo here and he got money. Okay, that's cool. And developed into, I really like that chase of sponsorship. Nothing buzzes me out more than when someone says no. and that I'm like, right, game on. Game on. Because no is such a lazy answer. Because we might have gone through a meeting, an initial email, a phone call. No doubt you'll know it's Ollie. It's another phone call. Probably another email. We'll have a meeting. We'll meet up. Right, can you just jot that down in an email? You know, and you're like in this process, and then they say no. I'm like, oh, that's lazy. That's now we get started, you know, because, you know, and they say we've got no budget. Favorite phrase in the world ever. It's like, have you got 50p? And they go, yeah, of course I've got 50p. It's like, well, you've just lied to me. You have got budget. You've got 50p. We didn't get to the point of saying what this number is, but you just assumed it's so far out your reach. You've instantly gone in with, no, we can't do this. And it's like, no, you can, but let's start. It's called a negotiation, you know? And I think so many people in the mountain bike world lack that negotiation ability. They just go sort of yes or no. And like I say, so I've always enjoyed that. Like going through my BMX career, I always had like slightly different sponsors. I always like to ride different BMX bikes. So some things that might have been in the old BMX Plus magazine, some brands that weren't over here.
Right.
My mom and dad would be, oh, I like that. And they'd always like contact them on a phone call, you know, to USA and just be like, right, our son races, you know, we want to do something. And so I was always like quite interested in riding something different, being a bit different. I didn't race BMX in Vans in the 80s and 90s. I was in like Nike shoes because they had better grip, kind of stuff like that, you know. So I'd never followed the form too much. And then the big change for me, you know, KONA were a cool brand and all good. When I started my mountain bike career, it was always pretty sort of like cool, you know what I mean? Cool brands. Like they weren't like clean cut, but kind of did cool stuff. But then 2004, they had the option to sign Fabian Burrell. And I was sacked from KONA at that point. And unfortunately, I lost everything because you're on a team who had Ford, and we had Tioga, and we had all these companies, whatever, Fox suspension and all this stuff. The whole lot went. And so that was a really good thing for me because in 2005, I just set up my own team, my own deal, because I was like, no one can whip this away. If one person leaves, that's cool, it's fine. So I've still got 13 other sponsors. So that's when I started setting my own team up, doing my own thing. And that just focused my mind. You had to be on it. You know, I was still at the sharp end of forecast. You know, I was winning at World Cups, all that stuff. And it's like, right, we need to look like World Cup teams, we need to look smart, professional. But I take it really seriously. I take it very personally. If someone's going to invest tens of thousands of pounds in you, well, you better do a decent job for them because it's just embarrassing otherwise. Have some respect for yourself and the company. If someone gives you a pair of shoes, be aware you really need to sell them 2 pairs of shoes. 1 pair to cover the cost of your pair and 1 to make them some profit. It starts with that simple analogy and you build it forward from there. As it's gone forward, you know, I take it very seriously. And when people start investing, you know, X thousands of pounds in your program, what you're doing, they're employing you to win. They're employing you to be clean and tidy. They're employing you to just be a proper ambassador. And I still, to this day, and this is what I've been able to make my career so long, I still believe, with all due respect, that racers are the influencers. I think racers are still the absolute pinnacles. You know, I love the path you forged, and I love the path that the influence. But racers, I think, if racers do their thing and do it properly and do it professionally, those guys are just, you know, like, you know, you top down hers at the minute. You're
undoubtedly.
You're Luke Brunies and you're, you know, whoever's. They are, you know, and this is professional. This is professional sport at the highest levels. And Thomas Slavic, you know, does a fantastic job. And again, we get asked, you know, me and Thomas get asked all the time, like we are number 1 and 2 in Forecross Pro Tour and in UCI World Rankings. You know, we are the top dog still in Forecross. And we're making a really good living, both of us separately, but, you know, using outside of industry sponsors and really engaging that sort of money field outside of industry, which we've had to do because of Forecross not being in the World Cup anymore. So we've had to explore other avenues, and you show our sport to people outside of our industry and they just jaws hit the floor and like, wow, we need to be a part of that. So yeah, I've always taken it seriously. I do like being professional. You know, Holly at home would say I'm not clean and tidy at home and it's a mess. But when I'm at a track, we try and put a good image across. And I take it like seriously about like influencing kids and next generation. You know, you want to inspire these people. I don't want to be a mess. And, you know, I want to actually do something, again, leaving the sport in a better place. I want to really do every bit I can to make it better.
It's really interesting. and really important. So I think it'd be great to give a couple of key pieces of advice to young people or older people listening to this who want to find a sponsor or they just want to get some help for the program. Like, what are the first steps you think you've got to do? Like, what's your value proposition a lot of time for brands?
Sure. Where do you start? It would be, it'd be something like, if you've got a meeting, don't be late. Like, be early. That's just be accountable.
Yeah.
Get on time. Know your stuff. Research your research a company. Research yourself. Like, know about the sport. Know some history. Know some detail. So when you go into these meetings, you can talk with authority. Like, no one wants to talk to someone who really doesn't know what they're talking about, and they're just asking you for £10,000, £1,000, a free pair of grips. They want to know you're across your field. They want to know you're across the topic. It's so easy now to get photographs and get imagery and stuff. Pay a photographer like Roots and Rain, those kind of things. Get some decent images. Like, really present your package, your PDF. When you're sending something to a sponsor, make sure it. My sponsor proposal we send in. When you start at the start and you finish at the end, the only question is yes or no. We've covered all the bases. We really try and cover history, current sort of plans, results and whatever, presentation, why me and why not someone else. We really try and just cover it all. So at the end of your proposal, it's yes or no.
It's yes or no, yeah.
So yeah,
but even no don't really work with you.
No.
No is basically
no's the best
yes.
outcome for me.
No's yes.
No is the best outcome.
Yes or yes.
It's
Can't say that on a podcast. They'll clip it.
but be clean, be presentable, know your stuff, be on time. There's some good starting points there.
Okay, beautiful. I also wanted to touch on the fact that you're a coach, which I think is really interesting. A lot of people always talk about coaching. Why did you decide to become a coach? Is coaching as important as people think it is? And you probably think it is?
Well, I coach in BMX only at the moment. I'm a fully qualified coach for mountain bike.
Because you want to be the man at mountain bike at forecross, right? You don't want anyone to even be good at it.
I'm not saying anyone has to.
You just want to be the boss. You start opposite foot forward.
Yeah, that's right. Watch this video of Bernard. Bernard's great at the start. Yeah.
12 and 6.
That's right. Just like Cycle Speedway. That's how you start. So I do some coaching with... The problem with me is time. It's actually having time to do this stuff. So my local club, which is where I started, Redditch BMX Club, needed a coach. And so I started coaching there a couple of years ago. I've got my level 2 BMX and mountain bike coaching awards. Anyone comes to me wants to know how to jump straight away. Well, the mountain bike coaching course doesn't allow you to coach jumping.
Right.
Whereas the BMX does. So to actually be insured so to do proper jumps, you need the BMX as well. So I got those qualifications 10 years ago, whatever. Thought it'd be a good idea. And only recently started using it because Redditch needed a coach because they had some funding stuff and whatever. Needed a coach that was registered. So took it up. And now we're sort of booked out. I coach every couple of weeks on a Wednesday. And we do like beginners and then expert sort of national riders, 2 sessions. Both sessions fully booked out, which is humbling for me. It's like, you want to pay me to come, that's cool.
Yeah,
I'm thankful. But yeah, it's nice to give back and teach kids sort of how to do it. There's quite a bit of experience in my brain. So just, And the hardest thing sometimes, like as a pro rider, actually explaining stuff is actually quite hard.
Yeah.
It becomes so natural for pro riders to do, but actually to explain is quite tricky. So I still learn every day, like how to express things, how to talk about gate starts, or how to talk about intricate sort of techniques. But really love it, to help kids out is super cool. Yeah. And obviously we touched on, but the British Four Cross, to actually give back to my sport that I love and to be organising it and trying to push it all forwards and it all working at the moment alongside, Holly and my mom and dad and everyone's like helping out. That's what I'm getting. I mean, it's super rewarding to actually like give these kids the opportunities.
Yeah. Really nice.
Yeah. I got a question. Day to day, what does a bike ride look like for you?
I'm
actually really interested.
Yeah.
A bike ride looks like a gym session.
Is that so? Yeah. So you're literally a four-cross racer. You're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, I get asked constantly, I'm a family guy as well and a four-cross racer. That's my two things. So
Yeah.
I try and train Monday to Friday properly, some stuff on weekends, occasionally, but really try and like figure it out. Weekends are family time or race time. That's it.
What's training for a four-cross racer?
So a lot of gym. So gym most days, a couple of hours, I would just say every day, Monday to Friday, in the gym, couple of hours, back home, sprints on the bike. It'll be track work. So I'll go to my local tracks, or it'll be going to some four-cross places like Chicksands or Afan, some of these places, and going riding mountain bike there. Now I've got a local spot called Kimver, which has got like some decent sized jumps and it's quite short. It's like a downhill track, but it's quite short, so it sort of replicates four-cross in its current form really well. So I'll go and e-bike there, like just do lap after lap and just hit jumps and
E-bike,
send it. Yeah. So, but yeah, a lot of gym work, a lot of sprints,
So it's like
and
like
some
training.
mountain biking.
Is there any sort of like not serious riding for you or not really?
No, honestly, not really. I don't
Mate,
go for a ride.
It's so interesting to me. I think I'm as opposite as physically possible.
Yeah.
in terms of biking.
I'm 46 years old,
You're
and
not.
I am.
Looking good for
Whatever,
46, dude.
It's a real problem. It's a real problem. I want to be like 20 again. I just want to do it all again. But
done a lot of cool
if I
things.
don't focus on what I'm doing, it'll come unpicked for me really quickly. Like I'll get
Really?
beaten.
Yeah.
Yeah. To beat a 20-year-old or a 22-year-old nowadays is like really hard.
Yeah.
I've got to actually put all in to do it. And so, like I said, do I go for a ride? Yeah, I'm on the e-bike all the time. I'm mountain biking all the time. But I'm always there with a purpose. It's always like to do something. It's always like I'm going to work on corners. I'm going to work on those jumps. So it's always a constant
So you don't do a lap, you
sponsorship.
session things.
What advice do you get? This is my job, and I'm going to win those races, and I'm going to work to win those races, and that's what I do. Any playtime at my age is just dead time. That's not going to work in terms of winning this race. So when I was like 20 and 30, we were just out all the time.
Yeah.
But now I've got to actually focus in on what I want to achieve and what I want to win. And it comes with a bit of discipline and a bit of like, okay, that's...
Is the desire still the same?
Is what?
The desire still the same?
Yeah. Yeah, it really...
Like, let's say you don't win one of these races that you...
I'm annoyed, yeah.
Yeah, you still
absolutely. It's, the end of 2026, I can announce it right here, but that's going to be my 30th year as a pro rider. And we're going to call it a day there probably because one, I'm old, and two, it's just like, how long do you keep going for? This sort of, this
That's
sort of
incredible.
regimented
It
sort of
is.
thing.
Well
So
done.
30 years as a mountain bike pro rider, I'll take
incredible.
that. I think in today's climate and what people are saying and how tough things are for some people, we've been able to forge a career in a sport that had some troubles and you wouldn't imagine four-cross riders at the minute are doing so well. Me and Thomas are just kicking that into the hedges. That's not the case at all.
Yeah.
I think if you, it's a long time, but I just genuinely feel at this age I've got to focus, otherwise I'll just get beaten.
Yeah.
And that would annoy me more than going for a ride with my friends or whatever. So
Wow.
I get asked weekly, you coming out? I can't. So I've got to do like 10, 50-meter sprints this afternoon, so yeah, can't do it.
Who has been, over this 30 years, who's been your favourite people to compete against and why?
Nice question, man.
Big love.
Yeah. Thomas Slavic, he's a really good friend. We both are on the same page when it comes to four-cross. Like he is like he does his street races and he's winning that stuff. He won Down Mall at the weekend and Shopping Mall. He does other stuff, whereas I do BMX on the side. So we're both having to sort of like diversify in what we're doing. But if he could just race four-cross, he would. That's all he loves. His training is very similar to mine. He doesn't go on many fun rides. He's on it, And again, it's what we've got to be. He's older now as well. And Thomas Slavic, super you're never going to get hit by Thomas. He's never going to hit you in a turn. He's always going to pass you by being smart. He's always going to be respectful to you on the track. We're good friends off the track as well. Like I say, our passions are about four cross, so we have a very sort of like focused goal up for the sport. In some of the golden eras, you know, absolutely racing against Jared Graves, Brian Lopes, all those guys I mentioned, Eric Carter, Dave Cullinan, Mike King. Yeah, you know, that's John Tomac. I mean, you know, I'm watching Eli on telly at the minute, you know, and you're just like, I raced his dad. That's pretty, that still buzzes me out. It's pretty cool. So you mentioned those names. It does make your hair on your back of your head sort of stand up. You know, that was cool to be in there at that time. I think we had, I'm sure when you talk to like Rob Warner and some of the other guests on here who are in that era, it really was a very, very different time. And we were all reveling in this opportunity to just do stuff without mobile phones and whatever. It was great times. Sick. So yeah.
Amazing.
Pick those classic four cross names. They're
the ones.
It was always tough to race against Sean McCarroll, against Karima Moore. Those guys, they would
you raced against Palmer
anything. Though. Yeah, well, Palmer's where I got the Boom Boom name from, which is kind of cool.
Way. Is that so?
I was racing in Japan, the World Cup in Aoi Mountain, and Palmer snowboards in Japan were like and Sean Palmer was a serious deal in Japan. And I think it was like a quarterfinal, and it was a dual race. So back in the head-to-head stuff. And Peter Graves, do you remember that name? He used to be the World Cup commentator, so he does like skiing stuff as well, but he's like the voice of mountain bikes in those Grundig days and the old days of World Cups. But he was commentating. I think it was like 25,000 spectators. Oh, it's crazy. It was a big race. And I'm racing Sean Palmer in the quarterfinal, and the entire crowd is shouting for him. Like, no one knows who I am, obviously. And it should be that way. And the commentator was sort of the only one shouting for me in many ways. Like, Beaumont Scott, he's leading, he's going, whatever. I crossed the finish line, beat Sean Palmer, and the commentator said, "Boom Boom takes him down." And I just remember, it's like, what? What the hell was that? And it was one of those moments of like, do you hide away from that name or do you just run with it? I've run with it, and I reckon more people know me as that globally than they do as my name now, you know. So it's done me well over the years. But yeah, it was Sean Palmer who was the reason I got Boom Boom name.
Oh, wicked.
Fantastic.
Well, good.
That's well good.
Yeah. Kind of cool.
Well, that's a killer story to end on, I'd say. Where can people find you?
At the forecast track in the gym.
Yeah,
behind the gate. That's where it is.
Snapping chains in a cul-de-sac.
They'll find me at the finish line. That's where they'll find me. No, I'm just joking. So at Beaumont Racing on everything, BEAUMONT on Instagram, all that stuff. My podcast is the 96 Podcast. We're trying to do BMX, mountain bike, BSB, TT, motorcycle ride, like all sorts of different people. So come and listen on there when you've listened to After Ride Companion.
Link in the show description.
There you go. And British Forecast. Yeah, come and have a go at British Forecast. I guarantee you will love it. I guarantee you will have a go and be like, this is amazing. So come and race Ollie. Ollie's going to be there.
Oh, man.
And
the return.
That's it. So we get Davey on one too.
Yeah, I'll do one.
Yep.
Oh,
perfect.
yeah. I'm in. Mate, it's been brilliant having you on. Thanks ever so much.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Go on, mates.
Thanks
Sign
for
us out.
listening as well. Peace and love.
Like and subscribe.
All right.
Mate, what an episode.
Brilliant. I thought you were really great, Davey.
Mate, and I thought you were even better.
Thanks, dude.
Better than normal.
Oh, cheers.
Hey, how about we tell our lovely podcast community to hit subscribe here.
Yeah.
Click on the video on Ollie's face.
That's right.
Click on the video on my face.
Yeah.
And follow us at The Ride Companion on Instagram.
They can like and comment as well.
Please do.
I'm going to try and get this energy and I'm going to bring it into next week.
Let's fast forward to next week's episode.
Done.